This is the Big O Show. This is the Big O Show.
Let's do it, baby. Let's talk a little football. Matt Verderame is next. Here we go. What's up, man? How you feeling?
I'm feeling well. How are you?
Oh, terrible, bro. Just absolutely terrible. You know, I thought they were ready for the moment. I should have. I should not have done that to myself. And what the Dolphins did on Sunday was disgusting. It was so unprepared. A lot of the same issues, the pre-snap penalties. You gave up on the run. You kept selling us Eichenberg. Just, you know, it was just a disaster what happened on Sunday. And you physically and mentally got manhandled too. And, you know, Mike McDaniel played that team 3 times last year. So I figured he had a lot of information, and I figured he was going to be able to counter. And then to watch Fangio hang Kohu out to dry the entire game out there with Stephon Diggs and not put X on Diggs. I would have had X following him to the bathroom, to the huddle, to the sidelines, to the car, unless he went to the club, because X has got a lot of problems with women off the field. I would have told X, you know, the club is the only place I don't want you to follow Diggs, but follow him anywhere else he goes. And to hang that second-year corner out to dry, that basically tilted the entire game in their favor. And, you know, it was over after that.
Yeah, the first quarter and a half, it looked like a game that was just going to be an absolute shootout where you looked at it and went, all right, 45-42. One team kept scoring, the other one didn't. And that was pretty much the tale of the tape. Now, look, I will say this. I picked Miami, as a lot of you know, to win the division before this thing started. And I picked them right now. I still think they will win this division. I still think they are the best team. I picked Buffalo last week to beat Miami because when you win the way the Dolphins won in week 3, even if there are looming issues, and there were with this defense, it's hard to focus on them when you win by 50 points. And the Bills, let's call it what it is, they gave the Dolphins a good old-fashioned ass kicking. I mean, that was, we are just going to beat the brakes off you. And to me, and you and I talked about this a touch before the game last week, you've got to run the ball against Buffalo. You have to take the air out of them a little bit. And I thought in that game, McDaniel got into the way that the Bills want to play, which is just drop back and wing it all over the field. And listen, I get that the Dolphins did that successfully against Denver, against the Chargers. But Buffalo is a different animal. Buffalo has very good players in the secondary. Now, the loss of Tre'Davious White is a very big deal long-term, but he's a very good player who's there for most of that game. They have very good coverage linebackers.
No Jordan Poyer. That was a huge loss.
Right, he wasn't there. Correct. Right. But this is a team that if they get you the way they want to get you, they can really put it on you. And I thought Miami in that game played the way that Buffalo wanted to play. And, you know, ultimately, look, my bigger concern is the defense. The offense is going to be fine. The offense will be fine. Like, it is what it is. They had a bad second half. Offensively, they'll be fine. Defensively, at some point here, like, you got to be able to cover somebody. And against Denver, that doesn't show up. Against New England, there's no offense. It's not going to show up. The Chargers went up and down the field all game long, and the Bills scored 48 points. Now, it's a new coordinator. Jalen Ramsey's not there. Jalen Ramsey's not going to be there for a while. So at some point, it's got to get figured out. I still believe the Dolphins will figure this out. I wouldn't be shocked at all. In fact, I'll probably pick them when they play the Bills that beat them in Miami. But that game, you now have to respond the right way. You can't just go in the tank and go, well, you know, we're just not as good as we thought. No, you're still a really good team. Go out, hammer the Giants, get right, and get going. And they have to respond in the right way. And that's what I'm looking for this week out of Miami.
Yeah, I would. Well, I mean, but the Giants aren't really a measuring stick.
No, of course not. The Giants stink, but that's my point. They'll go out and smoke them. Don't mope all week and then lose some game you shouldn't lose, or win by 3, right? Go out and hammer the Giants and get back to feeling good about who you are.
Yeah. No, I got you. I got you.
Because these next 2 games, by the way, should be a joke. I mean, the Giants and the Panthers, they should beat by 100 points. So go out and win these 2 games. Get yourselves to 5-1, okay? And then you got a big game on a Sunday night against Philadelphia. That is a measuring stick game. That is on the road in Philly, and you see where you are a little bit. Have you fixed some of your defensive woes? Have you stuck to the ground game here these next couple of weeks? Because I'll tell you, as we all know, against Philly, you better run the ball in that game. Because if you're in a pass rush situation with Philadelphia, good night. That team will have 2 on his back all evening. So we'll see. But these next 2 weeks are get-right games. Win these games, and we'll use these games to work on stuff that you're going to need to execute when you play Philly, when you play Kansas City, when you play Buffalo again.
Right. Yeah. No, listen, that's where I'm going to measure you. I'm going to measure Philly. I'm going to measure you in Kansas City. I'm going to measure you in the next Buffalo game. If you can't win your share of those games, you still have not arrived, unfortunately.
Correct.
And that's just the facts, because I've had fun with this team over the years that we've kind of been stuck in the middle. Steeler Wheels, that song, Stuck in the Middle. And so that's kind of what it feels like when you get trounced by Buffalo. It's like, okay, bro, you can beat the middling teams, the lesser teams at times, but when it comes to the better teams, you just don't, show up. And so to me, the next 2 weeks are just stuff that you pad your schedule with, but it's Philly the next test. I want to see if you could show up in these kind of moments, and I want to see this coaching staff also show up in these kind of moments.
Yeah, and that's fair. That's totally fair. McDaniel has to look. I think McDaniel's a great play caller, and I think he's a really good coach. I do. I think Mike McDaniel's an excellent coach. But Mike McDaniel has had a tendency in some of these bigger games to get away from himself a little bit at times. And listen, he's human, and there's a tendency to chase sometimes. You get behind, the defense isn't playing particularly well, and all of a sudden it becomes, all right, hey, like we got to put the pedal through the floor here. And I think there's actually sometimes that can be almost like quicksand. When you try to do that, it gets worse. It's almost like in basketball, right? Like if a team goes on an 8-0 run, best thing to do is just call timeout. Call timeout, regroup a little bit, go to a set out of bounds you like, get a couple of cheap points, and then go from there. Now in football, you're not just going to blow a timeout. It's a little bit different. But sometimes it's like, hey guys, you know what? Let's run the ball a little bit on this drive. Let's throw a couple of short passes, get some cheap yards. Especially on the road, especially when you're in a hostile building and it's starting to get away from you a little bit, slow the game down, run the ball. I know, as everybody knows, you're a Chiefs fan, so bear with me. But I remember last year in the Super Bowl, they came out of half down 24-14. That game was getting away from them. And if you go back and watch that game, the first drive out of halftime, they didn't throw the ball. They ran the ball down Philadelphia's throat all the way down the field. They just basically handed off to Isaiah Pacheco and said, all right, Isaiah, go for it. And it settled the game down. It was a long drive. It took some of that amped up feeling out of the game. I thought Miami, when it got down 20-14 and 27-14, I thought that was an opportunity to run the ball. A-Chan looks incredible. Give him the ball, let him run, go get a touchdown, and then you settle the game a little bit. They never did that. They throw the pick to Hoyer, to Hyde. I apparently combined Hyde and Poyer to Hyde, and that was the game. I mean, the second that happened, that game was over, right? That was where the Dolphins needed to settle it, and they didn't do it.
Yeah, no, he abandoning the run is something that he's done, too often, and it's like, dude, I thought this was going to be part of your thing. It's kind of like who you are and all that kind of stuff, and I think he also puts. By doing that, he puts so much pressure on Tua in the passing game. You got to have some balance, dude. Everybody should have some balance, and at times, and especially when A-Chain's averaging 11 yards a carry. I mean,
you have to give him the ball. You have to give him the ball.
Yeah, you got to give him the ball. Hell yeah. And Mostert is also doing a terrific job. I don't understand why you don't keep milking those two guys who are weapons for you coming out of the backfield, even catching the ball too. Those guys. What'd you think this week? The MILF monster actually got a couple of passes there, and they actually scared the crap out of Kansas City this week.
I got to tell you, Zach Wilson played great. Like, the Chiefs didn't help themselves with some of the things they did in that game. Mahomes I actually think Mahomes had the worst game he's ever had. He was terrible.
Yeah, he didn't play well. Yeah,
no, he's off. At least with his arm. His legs actually ended up winning them the game, but his arm was terrible. Zach Wilson actually made throws in that game that I was like, oh my God. Like, what? I was stunned. He had the drive out of halftime. He had 2 back shoulder throws into like really good coverage. And then he gunned a touchdown pass in there on 3rd down. Sometimes you just got to look at a guy and go, you know what, man? I know what everybody thinks. I know how he's played. Like, I get it, but he's on one tonight. He looks awesome. And in the end, his stats were for a normal quarterback, they were fine. I mean, he averaged 6.5 yards an attempt or whatever. But for Zach Wilson, he looked like Dan Marino. I mean, he was incredible how well he played. I was shocked. And if you're the Jets, I think you've at least got to feel like, hey, man, if he plays like that all the time, we can win some games. I mean, you look at that and go, all right, the defense is good. The defense is good, right? So if Zach Wilson can go out and complete 25 of 36 for 250, you're going to win some football games. You're going to win a lot of football games. And I think if you're the Jets, you feel pretty good. And I think we lost Big O here, so I'm just going to hang out and I'm going to take over the show. And for the Chiefs, look, it's one of those games. It's ugly. It's a game that you're going to take a lot of the tape and not be thrilled about it. But in the end, they found a way to win despite 2 turnovers, a safety, some sloppy play with penalties. I mean, defensively in 4 games, the Chiefs have given up 51 points. So they've actually defensively been fantastic. I mean, Wilson in that game certainly did a job on him more than you'd ever expect. But it was a game that I thought overall, look, it's one of those deals. You go on the road, you win ugly, you move on. Do I think the Chiefs are worried about it? No, I will say this. The Chiefs receivers at some point have got to do better. The Chiefs receivers are a mess. 7 catches, 65 yards have been brutal. They do need to figure that out. But it's been bad. It's been bad. Bad football from the Chiefs receivers. Anyway, enough of the Chiefs. I thought the worst performance of the week. The Giants are so bad that there almost needs to be answers laid out as to where that team is going and what's going to happen. Because you spent $160 million on Daniel Jones. And Daniel Jones can't play. And Daniel Jones couldn't play last year. Like, everybody talks about the fact that he had a career year. Daniel Jones threw for 3,200 yards and 15 touchdowns. I understand he ran for 700 and change. That's great. He threw for 3,200 yards and 15 touchdowns. I mean, he's a guy. And the Giants panicked at the witching hour of the franchise tag deadline because they didn't want to lose Barkley, but they also didn't want to pay him. And so the answer to that was, well, we'll pay Jones and we'll structure it in a way we only got to pay him for 2 years, right? And we can get out of it. But that way we keep Barkley. Well, Barkley's been hurt again, and Barkley's a fantastic talent, but he's hurt quite a bit. And now all of a sudden you have this situation where you're looking at Jones going, okay, he's not good, and he's behind an offensive line that is basically made up of 5 greeters at Walmart who have never watched a football game. I mean, I've never seen an offensive line get beat that bad. 11 sacks, 10 of which were on Jones. That's impossible. But that's also on Jones. So that's on everybody. To be that bad, and you're not calling out the right protections, you're not aware of anything. It's on the coaching staff. the Dolphins seriously should beat the Giants by 30 points. The Giants are absolutely a disaster. The only thing the Giants can do occasionally is get pressure up front. Thibodeau's playing well this year. He's turned the corner. Dexter Lawrence, Leonard Williams, all that, right? The Dolphins have to account for that. Other than that, there's nothing. The Giants have no receivers, okay? Waller is at this point of his career basically a hood ornament. They've been awful. And as we welcome in Big O back to his own show. I've taken over for you. You're lucky. I used to do this for a living, or I did my own show. The Dolphins should win that game going away. And if they don't, that is a big issue.
We got real problems.
There you go. That's right. We seamlessly transition.
Either one of the next two games, you got real problems if you end up doing that. So anyway, Zach Wilson actually
he played well. He played well. And at some point you got to give him credit. The Chiefs didn't help themselves. I thought they sat in too much soft zone in that game. I thought at times they could have maybe heated him up a little bit with some blitz packages, which the Chiefs actually like to do, but they haven't had to do much of this year because their pass rush has gotten home with Karlaftis and with Jones. They gave him some easy throws underneath because I think they felt like, well, if they give him these easy throws and they bottle up Hall, that's fine. The problem was that he made so many of the throws that then they had to kind of change the defense a little bit, going a little bit more base instead of being a nickel. And Hall was still able to crease him. The play of that game, not that I'm sure many Dolphins fans care, but the play of that game was Brian Cook, a second-year safety for the Chiefs, making an incredible tackle downfield on Breece Hall. That was the game. If he doesn't make the tackle 20-20, the Jets, it's an 85-yard touchdown run. That game might be out of the gate. And he tackled him by his shoelace, and the Jets then went 3-and-out at the punt. The Chiefs went and kicked the field goal, won the game. By the way, I see a true Fin fan saying, with today's rules against the defense, the Fangio bend don't break scheme will make Jones look really good. You know what? I hear you, but I got to tell you, if I'm Fangio in this game, all you do is sit on the short stuff. I mean, they can't throw over the top. They don't have the ability to do that. So if I'm Fangio, I'm sitting single high all game long. 8 guys down near the line of scrimmage beat me, man. You want to throw it to Darius Slayton over my head? Cool, go for it. You want to actually play Jalen Hyatt, who has barely played at all this season, the 3rd-round pick out of Tennessee? Fine, go for it. But I'm not letting you dink and dunk me to death. And by the way, I thought that was the one thing I thought the Chiefs made a mistake with the Jets. That was a game that if I'm the Chiefs, throw it over my head, beat me. I don't care. Put 8 guys in the box and make Zach Wilson throw. Now, to his credit, he actually did throw one deep down Lazard. That was more of a prayer than it was like a really well-executed pass. I was surprised at the way that game played out. But Sean, welcome in. Welcome to the party.
Yeah, I guess I'm going to jump on for Big O right now as he's having a little bit of issues. But I wanted to ask you, the Giants, they're the Dolphins favored 10.5. I don't know if it dropped since then.
Sure.
That's a good line, or what are you thinking in this game as far as?
Yeah, I think it has to be, man, because if it's under 10, everybody's going to bet the Dolphins, right? So if you're Vegas, you kind of got to put it over that 10 threshold. 7 and 10 are the magic number, 7, 10, and 3, right? So I think if you're Vegas, if the game was in New York, maybe you do like 7.5, 8, something like that. But with the game being in Miami, the Dolphins should score 30 points on that defense without even blinking. I mean, then you get to the question, okay, does Daniel Jones, could he get up over 20? I don't know. They can't score. I mean, I wrote a column about it after the game, and I forget the exact numbers. If you take the second half out of that against Arizona, if you take that second half out, there's something like Jones has 0 touchdown passes and 6 picks. I mean, they're atrocious. And they're averaging like 4.3 yards per pass or something. I mean, it's something ridiculous. The column's up on SI. People want to read it. It's so bad that, to me, if you're the Dolphins in this game, you're like, look, we don't need the blitz to get home. We're going to choke off the run game. We're going to sit on all these short underneath passes. And by the way, you could even sit really in the middle of the field because Jones doesn't like to throw the ball outside the number. So if you're the Dolphins, just congest the short and middle, 10 yards and in, and call it a day. I just don't think the Giants have any answer for it. I mean, if you're Fangio and he's got to throw the ball deep, you win. Game's over. So I'd let him do that all day long.
All right, I want to jump around the league if that's all right with you, Matt, real quick. Bengals, what is going on?
Burrow is playing like one of the worst quarterbacks in football because right now he is one of the worst quarterbacks in football. He can't move. He can't move. I watched that game against Tennessee. He can't plant and drive off of that leg. So everything's got to be short, Sean. Everything's underneath. They can't stretch you vertically with Higgins, who's now even hurt, and then Chase, who's, of course, one of the better deep ball receivers in the league. They can't do any of that. So everything's just dink and dunk. The offensive line hasn't held up. It has not been good. And I think what you're looking at now is a team that they know that Mixon's gone after this year. Boyd's gone after this year. Potentially Higgins has gone after this year, might get franchise tagged. And so I think they kind of know, like, we got this window this year, and not to say it's not there next year. I mean, you still have Burrow and Chase and a lot of good players in defense, but like, this is a huge year for the Bengals. And I think they're doing everything they can to kind of, plug the holes in the boat and try to find a way. But if you're going to play like this, there's no point. You might as well just sit him. He can't move. And frankly, worse, he can't protect himself. I mean, Tennessee in that game just blitzed the daylights out of him. And he can't move. I mean, he just got hammered. To me, Cincinnati's got Seattle, actually Arizona first, then Seattle, then a bye week. Why not sit him these next two games and the bye? Give him a month. If you can't beat the Cardinals with a backup, you know what? You're screwed anyway. So get to 2-4 and rest them, because out of the bye, they get the Niners and the Bills. And if they're not right for those games, they're going to get hammered. I think the Bengals are really doing themselves a disservice by not just getting them right.
And then now, do you think they made a mistake? Because they had, I forgot who was their backup, but they let him go and then they kept
Jake Browning.
Yeah, Browning. And then now they've got A.J. McCarron, I think, on the practice squad. Yep. Is Browning, I think he's got like one NFL start or something. Or is it just the fact that they don't trust in those guys is why they're pushing Burrow so much?
I think it's a huge part of it. So they let Brandon Allen go. Browning's never played an NFL down in his career. Never played it. He never.
Oh, yes, never. I thought he had one. Start.
Okay. And then Simeon they had in training camp, and they cut him. I got to tell you, I was at training camp a couple of weeks maybe after Burrow got hurt, and I was watching Browning and Simeon. They were rotating reps with the ones. I don't understand how in God's name they watched Jake Browning and said, this is good. This is fine. We should go with this guy. I mean, I was talking to a bunch of other reporters, mostly beat guys for the Bengals, and everybody felt the same way. If Browning's got to play this game, they have no chance. They're not going to win games. And I think they know that. So why they didn't go out and sign a Teddy Bridgewater, I don't know. Because Teddy Bridgewater was available after Burrow got hurt. Say whatever you want. I mean, I know Dolphins fans are familiar with Teddy. I'm not saying he's a top 10 quarterback. He's a hell of a lot better than Jake Browning. I mean, I'll take him all day long over Jake Browning. So I think that's part of it. I also think there's a little bit of, hey, look, Burrow just signed the richest deal in NFL history on a per-year basis. And I think there's a little bit of Burrow wants to play because he doesn't want it to look like he got paid, and he's sitting. And then, if you're the Bengals, you want to piss off the guy you just paid a fortune to. But sometimes, look, you just got to piss him off. It is what it is. I mean, he can't play. He's got to know it at this point. I think the Bengals have really done themselves a disservice the way that they've handled this situation with Burrow. Hey.
All right, Matt. I have no idea what you've been talking about.
We talked about the Bengals. I did everything you needed to talk about the Dolphins and Giants. We're set up there. I talked about the Giants and what a disgrace that they've been all year long. So you should be in a pretty good spot.
Okay. Did you provide Matt Canada with his burner phone?
No, I did not. But Matt Canada, I have never seen a fan base hate a coordinator more than the Steelers hate Matt Canada. Every time the Steelers are on, my feed just populates with people screaming about Matt Canada. And I got to tell you, like, I feel like I get it. Like, Matt Canada has been an obvious issue. At the same point, what is Matt Canada supposed to do with Kenny Pickett? Like, this idea that if they get rid of Canada, Pickett's going to turn into Joe Montana. No, he's not. He's played a full season at this point in terms of games started. He has thrown 11 touchdowns to 13 picks. Now, you want to tell me he's going to be better? Okay, fine, here, better. He better be a hell of a lot better because he's not been good. Najee Harris, who everybody went crazy about, like, he's kind of been a guy. He's not bad, but he's not, like, unbelievable.
No, he's not.
They have George Pickens in what exactly on offense? I get it. I'm not saying Canada's done a good job. This idea that they're going to get rid of Canada and become the 99 Rams is just crazy.
That burner account, Twitter account thing, it's not a good look for him.
Story. By the way, because I know we're up on time here.
He used his team email to open up that Twitter account.
If that ends up being proven to be true, that's one of the dumbest things I've ever seen.
Oh my God, that is funny.
It's by the way, I will say, I'm sure you've been following along. So the Broncos cut Randy Gregory today.
Yeah, they just cut him. Yeah,
70. Listen, I never do this because I'm not that guy. I like to take 5 seconds to say that I was a voice in the wilderness when they signed him to that deal. I was just blown away. I was like, how could you sign 5 years and $70 million and to be that guy for another 15 seconds? Okay, here's why I was apoplectic when that deal went through. Randy Gregory got 5 years, $70 million. Going into his time in Denver, he had 16.5 sacks for his career. And they gave him $70 million. Would you like to take a crack at how many times he registered a sack in Denver?
Twice?
3.
Oh,
3 times. They paid him $70 million for 3 sacks. And this coming on the same day that the Chargers traded J.C. Jackson back to the pay. The Dolphins. The Chargers got a look at J.C. Jackson when you consider his injury, which is, of course, unfortunate. He played like 8 games for the Chargers?
Yeah.
They paid him $82.5 million. And the Chargers were like, you know what? Get out. And now they have to pay him all kinds of dead money. The Chargers and the Broncos today are showing you why they're the Chargers and the Broncos. I mean, that is about as bad as it gets. I'm not even saying that they're wrong with the moves they made today, like probably just correcting wrongs. But wow, the Jackson move, I thought was a good move for the Chargers at the time. So I'll eat all the crow in the world there. The Broncos move, that was a catastrophe of a signing the second it happened. I remember that, if you recall, that happened in a vacuum of the Cowboys thought they had a deal with Randy Gregory.
Right.
And then the Broncos swooped in at like the 11th hour in the 11th minute and signed him. And everybody in Denver was like, oh, this is a great coup. As it turns out, no, not so much. Like, it's one of the worst contracts in NFL history. And Denver's now eating a crap ton of dead money. No, well done. Well, and by the way, Denver's front office never gets any criticism ever. Like the Russell Wilson thing, Randy Gregory, and yet everybody's just still sitting there. It's incredible. If that happened in New York, those people would have been excommunicated from the city.
Yeah.
Those people would have to live in like Tucson after this. Yeah. And then everybody in Denver is just still sitting there chilling out. It's incredible.
Yeah. And by the way, the Sean Payton thing may not work out too. So, you
not
never
been great
know.
to this point.
Huh?
Not been great to this point.
Yeah. So there's a lot of money thrown around. But then again, they got the Walmart money, bro. So they're fine. They print more money than the Federal Reserve at Walmart. So they're pretty good. All right, what do you got going on Sports Illustrated so folks can check you out?
Yes, piece today, kind of an all-22 thing, breaking down 3 big plays from last week, although I will warn you up front, one of them is the Micah Hyde interception. So we got that. I got the quarterback rankings coming out. They come out tomorrow. And then I have another piece coming out where I break down the key matchup from every game, for every game coming up on the weekend. Thankfully, that piece comes out on Friday, so I don't have to break down a key matchup for Commanders Bears. The key matchup in that game is if the Commanders show up and they're breathing, they're winning. So we'll have all that. And then my Sunday column, which just runs throughout the entire day, which is literally the entire day when you have these international games. So you can check that out on the front page of SI. It's a reaction to every single game in the National Football League.
Follow him on Twitter at Matt Verderame. Matt, thank you for being a stud and hanging in there through all the technical difficulties. Appreciate it.
You got it. No problem. Take care.
Appreciate you. There you go. Boy, he was studly here hanging in there, and appreciate all of you out there